Hello and welcome again. I'm Srishti Chipde and this is the Purple Science Podcast. With the previous three episodes, we have started a series of conversations where we talk about questions and challenges that students in science face and try to find some solutions through those conversations. Today's topic is one such question that I have been hearing a lot of chatter about because I just graduated last year and a bunch of my friends who are doing their MSc, in fact, more than 90% of them are doing their MSc. So they all have this existential question of whether they should go into the industry or academia. Now, of course, as somebody who didn't go for either, I believe that there are a bunch of other things that you can do with science or in the field of science. But since these are the two most talked about career paths, especially for those who are research enthusiasts, we will start the conversation with these two. But I really aim to not just talk about what it really means to be in these two fields, but about the tons of other options that are available and the projects that people, especially those who have some science background, can take up. Now, with a simple YouTube search, I thought I would find maybe what is the difference between academia and industry and which could be a better path. But I found, and not to my surprise, honestly, I found a bunch of different kinds of stories. Stories of people who left academia because they were not getting the kind of pay that they deserved with all the work that they were spending on research and all the hours that they were spending in the lab, and also the extremely long amount of time required for getting something that is viable and replicable, and having to stick with a line of research that is very niche. While I also saw a bunch of stories of people who left industry because their job didn't offer any space for creativity and innovation and didn't really allow them to go deeper into any one concept. And when you work directly with the market, it comes with its own set of fast paced challenges and problems. So then I asked ChatGPT which one it thinks is a better career path, academia or industry. Again, it gave a not so surprising answer. It says that there is no such thing as a better path for a science student because it really depends on their individual interests and skills and also career goals. So, both of them, academia and industry, will offer unique opportunities and challenges. Both will have its own advantages and disadvantages. But at the end of the day, both are about problem solving and finding unique ways to solve the problems or fill the gaps that we see in the society and the market. Now, what we really should do is make the students aware of what it really means to have a career in both of these fields. And maybe if they could get better experiences and conversations with experts, they will be able to make much more informed decisions. So, this is what we will try to do in the upcoming episodes, alongside also exploring other options. But just to give a very quick peek and to initiate this series of conversations, I had a quick chat with one of my seniors in college, Tejaswini Dhurde. She is doing her MSc at Amity University, Gurgaon, and currently also working on a short term research project with a biotech company in Pune. She's 1 year my senior, but a very close friend of mine, and one of the brightest, smartest, and the most analytical people that I have met during my college days. So I thought she was the best person to have this discussion with. I think this conversation left us with more questions than answers, which is a great start, and hopefully will give you a good window into what the dilemma actually is. So let's move on to the episode. Everybody has this one question come in their mind even after BSc, whether to choose academia or industry. And then
when is the right time to ask yourself that question. So, what
Mm.
kind of exposure in college do you think would have helped you make a more informed decision?
Knowing about the biotech industry would have helped me a lot. Like even in bachelor's, whenever there was any career like orientation or presentation, the term industrial research didn't come up that often. People would start talking about net and GRE and opportunities for MSc outside or giving the IT jam. Basically, more entrance exams to get into institutions. That was what career guidance was, at least in my case during my bachelor's. And instead, if more people talked about the roles that you can do, like, so you're learning something, and how can what you are learning be applied or be used in whatever your career is, and what kind of job roles, what kind of career trajectories are possible or people are taking. That would have been a very big part of my like decision if it was available, which it wasn't. And apart from that, I did know about industry, but I didn't know what exactly it means. At that point, I thought that if I go into industry, it will be something which takes me away from science or biotech. Like it would be more regulatory or marketing, instead of research, as I would have done in academia, which is not exactly the case. Now I know that.
So, you mentioned previously that there were some people who were very specific. I mean, I'm not sure if narrowing down your options that early into
Huh.
something like QIQC and those things is good or not. But if there were more peer conversations and a healthy peer group was formed, do you think these
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
problems could have been solved because somebody knows something and then if you go on sharing? Or do you think that a mentor would have helped better?
I think a mentor would have helped better, or if there are peer conversations, instead of talking, at least at the bachelor stage, about specific what work we want to do, it will be better if we talk about the skills or things to learn for a peer conversation. But for industry or academia, or in general, what you want to do, it's better if you talk to a mentor about it, because they have a different perspective than us on this. Like when you're in the driver's seat per se, you can see like the overall journey, right? Because you just see what's coming next. And we need a mentor to guide us through that. At least in case of career guidance and taking those decisions, it's better to talk to mentors than just have a peer group. And peer group, I think, is good if you want to explore current opportunities. So, for example, if you want to take some classes, or which exams to apply to, or which company has what particular how does it work. For example, right now there are a lot of biotech companies, people who work there, I can talk to them about what they are doing, but that will give me a specific information. I wouldn't get the big picture.
Just more access to the real world, because when you are in
Ha.
your
Hmm.
undergrad you don't have the lab exposure, and you can't talk to researchers, or you didn't talk to
Mm.
industry experts, or just to experience that, I think will
Yeah,
make a lot more difference.
definitely.
So, you also said, Tejaswini, that the term industry didn't come very often in the conversations you had in your bachelor's. And industry itself is a very broad term per se. But let's say for the undergrads who might be listening to this, how would you describe industry? And can you like give insights into what a career in industry looks like now that you're seeing it yourself somewhat?
So there isn't any one industry. I will say there's a lot of different sectors in the biotech industry. So that could be biopharma, that would be healthcare. And depending upon what sector we're talking about, there is going to be a difference in the industry as well. So it's not always manufacturing, services. There's a lot of different avenues even within industry which exist. You have to think about the problem that is being solved there, right? So in the case of biopharma, say, if we want to make insulin, right? Everybody knows insulin's example, that we used to get insulin from pig pancreas before. And then we developed recombinant insulin. And then it was much easier to produce it, manufacture it, make it available. So insulin is one enzyme. There are so many enzymes present, some which are not present in humans and present in some other organisms which might be useful to humans. So that whole sector is in itself one industry. Same way, we know that we can sequence DNA now. You can get the entire nucleotide sequence of anybody's DNA. Now, that is a lot of information. How do you deal with that information? How do you make sense out of it? How do you store it in a way which ensures privacy and accessibility, or make it available to the right people? And that in itself is a whole different industry or whole different sector in biotech. So I would say that for undergraduates who are listening to this right now, that whenever you're reading, and you should read about biotech as much as you can, not only from textbooks, in general also, and whatever you're reading and whatever catches your interest, explore what can be done, like how that can be a solution, right? Because at least now we're in this place that most of the solutions are being converted into companies. So most probably there is somewhere out there who is working on that, because there are people who are working on like animal-less meat, like something as creative as that. So you can go and explore that, and that really widens your horizon from seeing your biotech career as, not only as a way to get a job to earn a living, but also to do something very creative and like exciting with your life, because it's definitely a very upcoming thing. We couldn't have even imagined biotech 100 years ago or even 50 years ago, because most of it is enabled because of the technologies and the knowledge we have today. So it's going to keep being redefined, as time goes on.
Just to rephrase or sum that up, I think industry is something that is more close to the general public, more close to the consumers, and that is what people's perception of science is, I believe. So, is that true? And also, can you highlight the defining factors or the differentiating factors between the two, industry and academia?
So in industry, the research is, I would say, goal oriented or problem solving oriented. And whereas in academia, it's more related to the interest of the like scientist. Whatever they're interested in, they're going to explore that more and then publish, whatever work they do. And in industry, you also have to see if whatever you're doing is economically viable or not. You cannot invest a lot in something which isn't going to, give you returns or something. So there is a business aspect to industrial R&D. Also in academia, most people work on a single subject or subtopic for a very long period of time. Like it's very niche. And if you work in a particular project, so you might be working as a postdoc or a PI, and you will be very knowledgeable in only a particular field. But in industry, you have to be more flexible. You have to know about more fields and be comfortable in working in new environments, because you're going to have to change as in when like the project requirement occurs. So you might have to learn new techniques which you never did before, even like later in your career. And you should be basically comfortable with that, collaborating with different people, and thinking of getting comfortable with not being an expert, but having enough information that you can learn different paths quickly.
Right. Can you also define the factors that made you choose this one path and not the others? And do you know of other existing options? So basically, if you stay, what will make you stay? And if you leave, what will be the reason that you leave?
I would say I knew that I wanted to do research after my bachelor's, but the traditional like academia, it it didn't appeal to me as much, right? To the point where I considered changing my career instead of going to academic research because it's just too long and you have to do a PhD and you don't know how long that will take. And as you go ahead, your options start narrowing more and more. It felt like that because you get specialized in one thing and then you can get more opportunities only in one specialization. So I didn't want to get into that. But then I heard about industrial R&D and and I like the sound of it. It's more flexible and your experience is something which can be, considered in other job roles as well. It's not like if you worked in one thing, then you can work in only that one thing. Like where I'm working right now, I know people that who've switched from research to business development or within research also, maybe from protein to mRNA, these types of the differences in what you work on. So, but you use the concepts that you learned everywhere. I like that and I decided that I wanted to explore it. And right now I'm doing an internship to basically do that. I'm exploring what exactly industrial R&D is, what it looks like, and like whether I should stay or not. So so you asked that what would make me stay. If I have enough opportunity to grow, how much can I learn? Because at this point, going for from someone who has completed a degree to someone who is actually employable, there's a gap between that. Like there's a huge gap between that. So does this particular role help me bridge that gap where I can learn the skills required to get that and practice them. Also, it should be for me a good financial decision because I'm like about 24 right now. By the time I'm 27, at least, I want to be financially independent. So, does this particular career path help me achieve that or not? Because I don't want to be in like debt or barely
Hmm.
going by the time I'm 30. So is that's also a factor. Apart from that, I would say the applicability. So like how much of the work is application based and in industry most of it is. So that always keeps you in touch with like the happenings or what other options are there or what things can be worked on. So all of that will come into like consideration. And what things would make me leave if it doesn't give me a creative outlet. So like one of the other choices which I've considered is science communication because I mean I think it's very important. We need more people to know what science really is about, and B, it gives a creative outlet so I can problem solve, but I can do it in a way in which I can express myself as well. So that is also important to me. And if like the industrial role does not give space to do that, or at least space to find other ways in which I can do that, then I'll have to reconsider, and keep exploring.
So, very quickly, can you also tell us about your internship? Just a general note on what science goes behind making a product and what kind of interactions happen there, and basically what your day at work looks like.
I work in a biopharmaceutical company. So we make biotherapeutics and biosimilars. Okay. What will be the first step, I would say, is to identify. Okay. So, for example, we have some disease for which there is a particular enzyme which helps in that disease, or the body isn't making enough of it, and you can supplement it externally. So, what we aim to do is to produce that enzyme. So first we'll have to see if that, like, we'll have to do the market research to see if there is enough people who want that enzyme, right? Because if it's something which is, like a rare disease or something, then it's not going to be that profitable. So you have to see that, okay, this is the particular problem we're going to be working on. Then secondly, literature review. See how do you produce that particular enzyme, for example. What are the steps in it? What are the techniques that we have to do? And then that will in itself have a whole process. So you'll be choosing right from DNA sequence to, putting it in a vector, choosing a host organism, all of that, producing the protein. Then once it's produced, then you'll have to purify it, you'll have to characterize it to see if it's working or not. And then you have to do all this in a way which ensures that other people can do it as well. So, everything needs to be very clear and concise and precise. Whatever you will be working on, somebody else would be working on it in the future. Once you figure out what is the workflow, then you start making protocols and SOPs. Then that goes into the lab scale where you start once the development phase starts. So, try a bunch of different things and see which one works best, and consider pros and cons, all of that. But once you do that, that is like the basis after which you refine that product. And there's a lot of things after that. So there's manufacturing, QA/QC, all of that. Then they take the product from the research lab to the consumer. And even after that, there's a continuous monitoring. So every batch that comes, it comes back to the lab where we check if it's still working the way it should be. And if there's any improvements we can do. Also, there might be some related other things, like some other enzymes or some tests that that particular enzyme is related to, that we can do. So that is like an overview of what I'm working on.
Thank you for that window into industry. I think if we have conversations like this early on in our undergrad and we are able to experience this, I think a lot will be solved. A lot of what you thought of as problems in your undergrad would have been solved. Just to sum up our conversation here, again, as a master student aspiring to build a career in research, what are the real challenges or concerns?
I guess the first challenge as master student is to gain enough research experience, because you have to learn how to use techniques or how to choose the right techniques. So it takes a while for most master students to even get in the lab, even once they've done their thesis. And I can see that for the next at least 1-2 years, I will be in this learning phase only. So getting opportunities to practice or to learn things, that is the one of the biggest challenges right now. Because most of the time in industries, they prefer people who already know how to do things. And if you go into academia, then you learn the techniques only related to your project or whatever your lab is working on. So it's challenge to, like, just know how different techniques work. Secondly, fact that, like, geographically biotech isn't present everywhere. Like, the opportunities are more in some places than others, and if you want to access those opportunities, you would have to travel, stay away from home. So that is also a challenge for a lot of people.
Well, as I said, this conversation left us with more questions than answers. And I'm sure you have a bunch of them too, so keep your suggestions and questions coming in. Tell us what kind of challenges you faced and how did you make a more informed decision of whether you should go into academia, into the industry, or choose another option. Thanks for tuning in to the Purple Science Podcast. We share stories every Tuesday. Our inbox is always open for your feedback, and our DMs across all social media platforms, linked in the description, are open to your unique stories. If you know somebody who might benefit from this, do share the podcast with them and spread the joy of learning.